So, Casey, just to reiterate this point, China only buying DUV equipment, how much revenue does ASML stand to lose if, let's say, China just completely gets cut off and ASML loses all sales? That's the big question. And that's what you need to know and think about before purchasing a premium priced stock right now.
Today, we're going to talk about everything you need to know about ASML stock right now and whether or not this stock is a top buy. Back in the spring, we did a video highlighting 4 risks for ASML. One was a high stock valuation, 2, reliance on just a few companies for EUV, 3, which was competing lithography technology, which we're going to talk about a little later. But the biggest reason was geopolitical risks. And those are on grand display right now, as we all know.
So let's get into it, Casey. Sorry, everybody. Looking at myself on the camera today, it looks like I just rolled out of bed. I didn't. I've had my coffee. Casey's had her coffee. So ASML, of course, the dominant company in lithography equipment, especially ultraviolet lithography. The business is in high growth mode this year, primarily due to a couple of things. So growth off of depressed sales last year, first because of supply chain constraints. ASML running up against its own constraints and the number of machines it can build and ship to customers. And we're going to talk about deep ultraviolet lithography machines in particular here in a moment. The company trying to ramp up from about 375 machines per year that it can manufacture to about 600 within the next couple of years. And then also geopolitical risk, specifically restrictions on selling to China. So this US China chip war still very much going on right now. It started all the way back in 2018, so 5 years now, and this is still the big risk you need to know about before you buy ASML stock. This has been the key problem for this company, and it's not going away anytime soon, unfortunately.
Let's give you some background here. To continue the advance of semiconductor power and thus computational power, the chip making industry has been slowly adopting ASML's EUV technology. Now, to date, only ASML has produced a machine capable of this, and they cost upwards of 200 million euro each. High NA EUV will be upwards of 300 million euro. It's a very steep price tag, but one the industry is willing to eat given that crafting these chips with features just a few nanometers in dimension is even costlier using DUV machines.
Now, maybe just a reminder here, the chip industry began switching to what we now call immersion DUV or deep ultraviolet in about 2006. Thanks to ASML's immersion DUV machines. This is called the Twin Scan family of lithography equipment. As a reminder, the semiconductor industry began switching to what we now call immersion DUV or deep ultraviolet lithography in about 2006, thanks to ASML's immersion technology. So prior to this, the ultraviolet light was just shown through air to draw the features on the semiconductor wafer. Immersion DUV is where that ultraviolet light is shown through a bit of water to increase the focus of that light and to get smaller and smaller features. So remember, smaller features on a chip means you can fit more of those features or transistors onto the chip and you get less power usage and more computing power. Now, this immersion DUV breakthrough enabled the industry to continue shrinking beyond 65 nanometers all the way down to roughly 7 nanometers. Of course, this is generally speaking, just marketing terminology for manufacturers today. This 65 nanometers, 7 nanometers, 5 nanometers, 3 nanometers, so on and so forth. It doesn't mean that all of the features on the chip are just that listed size, but you get the point here. The smaller the number, uh, supposedly the more powerful the chip that's crafted with this manufacturing tech. Little background here: EUV lithography later on, after numerous delays, was ready for order in 2016. So, roughly a decade after this immersion DUV. So, ASML does have competitors: Canon, Nikon. We'll talk about them a little bit later. But by and large, ASML, a monopoly like position in lithography equipment, especially with EUV. It's the only one, and it has a commanding lead in DUV. And the computing technology reliance on ever more powerful chips has led many investors to bet on ASML's long term advance. And as a result, because of this roadmap, all these companies are highly collaborative. They share their plans with each other because it's expensive to make chips. ASML has a lot of insight into its future advance and expects to sell a lot more lithography machines for increasingly higher price tags over the course of the next decade.
That isn't to say crafting very advanced chips without EUV is impossible. Though barred from EUV, China's tech giant Huawei, which has landed on the US government's list of organizations that pose a national security risk multiple times in the last 5 years, recently unveiled the Mate 60 Pro smartphone. A very capable processor lies inside with N7 manufacturing tech. Huawei's partner SMIC, S- Semiconductor Manufacturing International, calls it its 7 nanometer tech, or N plus 2. Again, as Nick mentioned, historically these terms referred to how many nanometers in dimension features on the chip measure, but these days it's mostly just marketing terms.
So, Casey, you'll put a link to that video that we did on that breakthrough. Probably everybody's seen it already to date. Far and away our most viewed video, and probably also our most hated video as well from certain viewers. But we're trying to present an unbiased look at this year. This is really important because here's what's going on. Details are scant about this chip, especially from Huawei. Huawei has not actually given any of the details about this chip inside the Mate 60 Pro. But industry engineers, specifically Tech Insight was the one that kind of pulled this phone apart and did some study on that what they have dubbed an N7 chip. They think that multi-patterning techniques were used only with DUV, deep ultraviolet technology. If it's true, it's a breakthrough for China's manufacturers and could possibly mean that US might want to apply more restrictions on DUV machines ASML can sell to China. This is important because all the way back in 2019, early on in the trade war, EUV, extreme ultraviolet, the newest, latest, and greatest machines that were available for purchase starting in 2016 were barred from China. So, as far as everyone knows, China has no EUV equipment at this point. I'm sure they're working on something of their own. And new restrictions are now going into place on DUV because, as it turns out, DUV machines can be used to craft chips all the way down to 7 nanometers and possibly even smaller. Obviously, this is a huge deal for ASML. And again, just to reiterate, the primary risk you all should know about with this company. It all hinges on this.
Nick, maybe you can explain to us, has this been done before with just DUV, making chips with features this small without a extreme ultraviolet lithography machine?
Good question. Casey, this came up from some commenters on that same video about the Huawei chip in the Mate 60 Pro. Yes, it has. So, outside of China, a number of years ago, when the industry was still waiting for that extreme ultraviolet machine from ASML, leading manufacturers like TSMC, Samsung, and Intel made chips this small, this so-called 7 nanometer chip size N7. This is where some of the hiccups came up for Intel. It They probably tried to scale up manufacturing chips with features this tiny without EUV. And we don't know for sure, but it's likely that they wasted a lot of time and it just didn't work. The economics of it weren't working out. Meanwhile, TSMC had some issues of its own, but was really quick to get first in line for EUV equipment when it came out to continue advancing its manufacturing processes. Samsung as well. So it is possible. Companies have been doing this in the past with 7 nanometer chips. It's possible probably to get all the way down to so-called 5 nanometer chips using just DUV. But by and large, it's not economically practical because your yield, the number of chips you can get out of one of those wafers, is not all that great. Now, I think China is going to work on this because they don't have access to EUV at this point, and so they're gonna try to figure out a way to get those yields right to make it make sense. And but let's before I get ahead of myself here, let's leave it at that. Yes, it is possible. It's been done in the past, but was deemed not all that economically viable.
Thanks, Nick. So let's talk about how reliant ASML is on DUV exactly. Because as we mentioned, the EUV machine is used for leading edge chip processes and is very expensive. And as we've discussed in some recent videos after the earnings call, DUV made up a very large portion of the revenue for ASML. So, suffice to say, more restrictions on ASML could damage an investment thesis in this company. On September 1st of this year, the Dutch government announced restrictions on the sale of ASML's most advanced DUV equipment, which is called the immersion DUV lithography, that will go into effect on January 1st, 2024.
Yes, and we have a picture of those. These are the TwinScan 2000 series of machines. These are the immersion DUV. And Case, you bring up an important point here because you know we probably do it more often than we realize, but we don't like superlatives here. Statements like ASML is the most important company in the world because it has a monopoly on EUV. The problem with statements like that is it ignores the fact that it is actually, as you said, DUV, not the EUV equipment, but DUV, deep ultraviolet, that makes up the vast majority of ASML's revenue. So, important point to keep in mind here and why we're talking about this geopolitical risk and China now being cut off from immersion DUV equipment. They can buy it from between now and January 1st, 2024. But after that, ASML won't be able to sell that equipment to China without getting an export license. They can still sell it, but they have to jump through those hoops. And they also can't service and repair any of that immersion DUV equipment that's in China after January 1st without, again, some sort of license and an exception from the Dutch government, which is, this is by encouragement from the United States government. So that's the situation. It's ASML's bread and butter. DUV equipment is the workhorse of the company. These TwinScan 2000 series machines that we are looking at here. The dry lithography equipment listed here just below on the same page. Here's some pictures of these. This is older technology, primarily used for 65 nanometer and larger feature sized chips. This is like the most mature manufacturing that you'll find very commonly in industrial and automotive and other areas of the market where you don't need really, really high end computing power. But these machines are not as expensive. So it's not the primary revenue generator for ASML. It's this immersion DUV, which is suddenly going to be a lot harder for China to purchase. So, Casey, just to reiterate this point, China only buying DUV equipment, how much revenue does ASML stand to lose if, let's say, China just completely gets cut off and ASML loses all sales?
Well, it's become very obvious that Chinese chip making customers have been gobbling up these machines due to pull forward of some DUV sales from 2024 into the back half of 2023. ASML's management bumped up its expected revenue growth rate this year from about 25 to 30%. So that means about 700 million euro in DUV orders were pulled from 2024 to 2023. This seems to be China doing some really fast shipment orders for DUV before these new restrictions go into force. And as for your question, Nick, new DUV restrictions could really put a damper on ASML. Of the 4.5 billion euro customer bookings for lithography equipment in Q2 2023, only 1.6 billion euro of that was those most advanced EUV machines. So new Q2 system orders totaled 4.5 billion euro, only 1.6 billion for EUV, which is 36% of the total. So DUV is still the driving force for revenue at ASML this year. So that means that two-thirds of ASML's future revenue is going to be tied to DUV, as well as services related to those machines. And China overall accounts for about 20% of ASML bookings, all of which is tied to DUV. So more geopolitical bumps in the road would most certainly throttle some of the company's growth.
So all of this to say, Casey, is well, there's still a premium on the stock. As we record this right now, ASML stock trades for just shy of 590 US dollars if you're a US based investor, which is it's still a premium price, about 30 times trailing 12-month earnings per share and about 25 times expected 2024 earnings per share. There's a caveat to that 2024. The company's bookings kind of sustain its double digit year over year sales growth through about the summer of 2024. And then that backlog is going to drop off. Orders are not being placed yet for the back half of 2024. ASML management thinks it'll happen. But what we don't know at this point is how much of those bookings from, let's say, midway through 2024 and beyond are going to be EUV versus DUV. So we don't know that split. But again, currently it's about one third EUV, two-thirds DUV through the first half of 2024. What will it be going forward? And then also, in addition to that, what impact is China going to have on that growth rate? How much impact is the new restrictions on the immersion DU lithography going to have on those customers in China? That's the big question. And that's what you need to know and think about before purchasing a premium priced stock right now.
Another thing to point out is that high in a EUV machine, the plan for that, if there is no hiccups, is ordering in 2024, delivery by 2025. Now, that machine, as we mentioned, is 300 million euros per machine, roughly 50% more expensive.
Yeah, a lot of moving parts here, Casey. There's a lot to keep track of, but what you need to know right now, DUV is actually the workhorse for ASML, not EUV, contrary to popular belief. So, is ASML a very important company? Yes, absolutely. Those DUV machines are going to need to be sold to someone to continuously meet the world's demands for more advanced chips. That's the general trend. But there are going to be bumps in the road. That's why the stock price has fallen as far as it has the last couple few months since its high. And this geopolitical risk is not going away. So just be careful, folks out there. It's easy to hear people pump this thing and talk about, the growth is a for sure thing, but this is a cyclical business because it's manufacturing and it's equipment. You get good years and you get bad years. It's cyclical growth. And in addition to that, the geopolitical wrinkles are going to be numerous as far as how it looks right now. Our bet is this is going to continuously be a thing in an on again, off again type of situation through possibly the rest of this decade, until at some point in the future, the world decides, you know what, we have enough chips. Let's move on to whatever the next bull market is for the 2030s. Casey, let's pull up the industry flow chart here for a minute, because when we're talking about ASML, I think it's important to remember the part of the industry the company plays in. This is semiconductor manufacturing equipment, a critical choke point in the industry. If you want to make chips, you're going to have to go through ASML and the Fab 5. We call it the Fab 5. So ASML, Applied Materials, those are the two big ones. ASML being a specialist in lithography equipment, Applied Materials is the generalist. We also have Lam Research, ticker symbol LRCX. We have Tokyo Electron, or if you're in the US, that's an over the counter traded stock, TOELY. And then another specialist, the metrology specialist, KLA Core, which we talk a lot about, KLA and Onto Innovation. So those are the Fab 5. That's what we're talking about.